Welcome to the fastest daf in town. Today, Masechtas Menachos daf Nun Tes. We're going to begin on Nun Tes Amud Aleph by the new Mishnah. Yesh te'unoi shemen l'avayna. There's some mincha offerings that require that you have to add oil onto it, as well as the lavayna. There's sometimes that you need shemen v'loy lavayna. There's sometimes you put on lavayna v'lo shemen, and then lastly there are some mincha offerings that lo lavayna v'lo shemen. Now ve'elo te'una shemen lavayna. Which mincha offerings require both? So first of all, minchas hasoilus. When it comes to mincha of flour, as Rashi says, demis nadev mincha stam. You just make a dedication to bring a mincha offering. So then you would bring shemen, and also lavayna would also be brought as well. And Rashi says, maybe isarin soilus, you bring a measurement of flour, v'shemen v'lavayna, ubayula, you mix it all together, v'kaimsa, then you do the kamitza, kamoshi hi chai, v'didaksim shemen v'lavayna b'chol hanach achrini, loksiv v'lavayna, el mincha soilus, so it's only said it over there, but we learn out from there to others. Okay. In addition to that, also a mincha which is either made in v'hamachlas v'marcheshes, in a small pan, or in a marcheshes, which is a deep pan, v'hachalois v'rakikin. Whether regard we're talking about chalas or the rakikin, the thin wafers, minchas kohanim. And this is an interesting one too. When it comes to the mincha of a kohen, which is kol kolel, it's not eaten by the kohanim. It requires shemen lavayna. Minchas kohen mashiach, the mincha of the kohen gadol, minchas oivin kachavim. Interestingly enough, oivin kachavim is allowed to bring a mincha offering. He can bring the darim and the davis. Minchas nashim, a woman who gives as a nedava a mincha, so also she would have to have in the mincha shemen lavayna, as well as minchas ha'omer. Says Rashi, Ba'nami ksiv shemen lavayna ksiv v'im hikriv minchas bikurim v'hi minchas ha'omer. So that's what it's referring to. However, some things do not require both shemen lavayna, such as minchas nesachim. When it comes to the minchas nesachim, tu'una shem ve'in tu'una lavayna, only oil but not lavayna. As Rashi says, minchas nesachim lo boy lavayna kum nefarish b'gemara. Lechem apanim, on the other hand, to'in lavayna ve'in to'in shemen. We know, of course, that the makter is the shnei bezich lavayna, which is taken off, and we're makter that, which is makter the lechem apanim, for the kohanim to eat it. So obviously it requires lavayna, but it doesn't have shemen in it. Shtei lechem uminchas chayte uminchas kanais ein tu'inin lo shemen lavayna. Now we know some of these. For example, a minchas chayte, someone who sins, or that of a saita. So because of the sin, so we don't want to beautify it. So therefore it doesn't have shemen or lavayna in it. But even shtei halechem, when it comes to the shtei halechem, the wheat breads which are brought on Shavuos, they also did not have shemen or lavayna either. The Gemara is going to basically go through this Mishnah for the rest of this Amud, showing how we know all this. But let's look at question 3 first. What requires shemen and not lavayna? So that is the minchas nesachim. Ve'elu menachos en tu'unin lo shemen v'lo lavayna, minchas kanais, minchas saita, which is minchas kanais rather minchas chayte, and also the shtei lechem. Okay, so it says the Gemara, Amar Papa Kol hechaditnan eser. Anytime it says tanan eser tanan lafuki min Rav Shimon Yomi mechsa chalois or mechsa rakikin yavi. It's coming to exclude his shita who says half chalos and half thin wafers are brought. Kamashmol and Deloy, says Rashi, Hanach menachos demasnisin eser tanan claimer kulan bois eser chalois. We bring 10, excluding Rav Shimon, who says later on in this parak, actually in a few blot, on Samach Gimel, Ha'imir Hari Olai Minchas Ma'afet, a person accepts upon himself to bring a mincha. Imratze Yavi Mechsa Chalos U'Mechsa Rakikin. He can bring half as chalais and half as thin wafers. Kamashmuan, that when it says Kol Menachos in our Mishnah, Eser Hu Ninhu, the Hanachalos Eser Chalais, the Hach Rakikin Eser Rakikin, the Hanach Tarti Dumi de Inuch. So basically, not that you split it, but it would be either all of this or all of that. Tanaban. So the pasuk says, "V'nosata oleha shemen," that you should put on it oil. V'loi alechem hapanim shemen. So we make the drasha. Now, when it comes to lechem hapanim, it's true the lechem hapanim has the shnei bezich levaina, but not shemen. Shach v'odinu. Ma minchas nesachim, and this pasuk by minchas nesachim. She'enu tu'unu levaina tu'unu shemen. We find that when it comes to the minchas nesachim, even though there's no levaina, but it does require oil, so lechem hapanim shetayin levaina, so enudin shetayin shemen. So maybe we come out from the minchas nesachim that putting on oil is no big deal. Levaina is the big deal. So if we find by the lechem hapanim where we do the levaina, we should certainly put shemen in as well. So Talmud Leha, Aleh shemen l'loy al lechem hapanim shemen. So it's only by the minchas nesachim and not by the lechem hapanim. And then the pasuk says, "V'nosata aleha levaina." You should put on it levaina. Aleh levaina v'lo minchas nesachim levaina. So it's the same way, but the other way around. When it comes to lechem hapanim, it's only levaina, but not shemen. Okay. Shiach v'odinu. You can say it the other way around. Ma lechem hapanim shein toin and shemen toin levaina. So it doesn't require oil, but levaina is necessary. So you should always use levaina. So minchas nesachim shetun and shemen, and then shetun levaina. Talmud lemer lehel levaina v'loyel minchas nesachim levaina. So you need these two alehas, one by minchas nesachim and one by lechem hapanim, to show that they're opposites. Now, when the pasuk says, fine. When the pasuk says mincha, that's a Rabbi's minchas shmini. What is shmini? L'levaina. When it comes to the minchas shmini, that's what it's coming to include. That also you need to have levaina. He will hoitzi shtei lechem. Shaloi yitnenu loy shemen v'levaina. As we said, the shtei lechem, there's no oil, there's no levaina at all on it. So Omar leha shemen v'lo lechem apanim shemen. Only on this, but not on lechem apanim. Lechem apanim is no shemen. So ema leha shemen v'lo minchas kohanim shemen. Made the minchas kohanim shouldn't have shemen. So estabra minchas kohanim havi leila riboy. Probably the minchas kohanim we do require shemen levaina. Shekain isarain kli chutz v'tzura hagasha v'ishim. So we need Rashi for this. So Rambos minchas shmini levaina hahik sibbe v'hibiyam shmini. This is when it came to on the 8th day, b'yom hashmini, which is the inauguration, the first day of the Beis Hamikdash, of the Mishkan. It says over there oil. So v'lo minchas kohanim shemen, v'adin nami lo minchas nashim v'kerim. Okay. V'chad minayu nakad. It just mentions minchas kohanim, but it could be including all of them. So we said no. It makes more sense that minchas nesachim should require shemen levaina. Why? Shekain dumus yachad. They're similar to a regular mincha. Shteihem bois isarein. Both of them require this amount of flour. Oimer asir. So eva. But the lechem hapanim, it says shtei esreinim. Yeah. So the lechem hapanim is different, right? Also kli. All menachos require a kli when you need it. But the lechem hapanim, says Rashi, enu nikdash el batanur, becomes kaddish in the oven. So it's not bekli. Chutz. Kol menachos like the minchas kohen, minchas nashim, avodas b'chutz. The avodah is done outside, but the lechem upon him, it's done in the heichel. It's in the kodesh. It's in the kodesh room. Ishim, says Rashi, kol menachos yesh behen megufon leishim. They're all burnt up. The minchas ha'omer nikmetzes. We do the kamitzel. Afuki lechem upon him, then megufon leishim. It's not the breads aren't burnt; they're eaten by the kohanim. Sibor lechem upon him and minchas ha'omer carbon siborheim. Minchas kain yachid. So they're not the same. Okay. So therefore, it makes more sense as the riboy is going to include the minchas kohen, which is like a regular mincha offering. And therefore, for that reason, kli chutz surah hagasha, which surah, it means uber surah. If it's left overnight, there's an iserlina. Okay. So adarab lechem upon him have a riba shechein sibura. So we said the lechem upon him is sibur, as opposed to the minchas kohen is the yachid. Chayva, it's an obligation. Tameya, says Rashi, b'oimer shtei lechem upon him chayva. Since it's a chayv, it's deiches tuma. And also the ochel pigula b'shabbatah. Says Rashi, shiri oimer, the leftovers of the oimer necholin lekohanim v'chein lechem upon him. Of a minchas kohanim kul kol, it's completely burnt. So my answer is mistabra nefesh. So b'shabbatah, the oimer karav afil b'shabbos. The lechem upon him is sidur b'shabbos. So he said, no, it makes more sense that minchas kohanim should be the riboy, because by the mincha it says we're nefesh. L'manu the whole minchas yachid tu'una shemen. Nefesh is just an individual. So pumfakir, the fact that it's a yachid, but that's the whole point. It says the word nefesh, which is including even an individual, like a minchas kayin would have to bring shemen and levaina. Amar mar lehu levaina v'al minchas nasachim levaina. Ema lehu levaina v'al minchas kohanim levaina. Right? Maybe the minchas kayin doesn't require levaina. Mastabra minchas kohanim have l'ribo shechein isaron. We said it's the same measurements. Bowl, it's mixed together. Bulug, mugash. It's brought closer. Beglal etzem, says Rashi. Oimer minchas kohanim bois beglal atzman. They come by themselves. Minchas nasachim beglal beglal zevach. The minchas nasachim comes together with the carbon toida. Adarabba minchas nasachim have l'riboy shechein sibura chayva v'tama shabbata. So the answer is again mistaber nefesh, which again is yachid. So the pasuk is clear that this pasuk, which is talking about shem and levaina, is nefesh, even when it comes to a yachid, namely minchas ger, minchas nashim, minchas kain. Mincha, rabbis minchas shmini levaina ve'ema lehoitzi. Maybe it's come to exclude. So haimai iyamar b'shalom rabbi sharper makes sense to include. El iyamar lehoitzi lamli shal medairis loyalfinan. So you wouldn't need this pasuk, because Shamaditis, we don't learn out from something which is just now to Ladaris to all future generations. He So the shtei lechem doesn't require anything. Maybe minchas kohanim don't need anything. So Mustaver minchas kohanim havlu ribo shecheni saron kli matzah ve'etzim hagasha ve'ishim. So that's the reason why it makes more sense to not include minchas kohanim. It makes more sense that we're going to we're talking about shtei halechem. So adarabba, maybe it's the opposite. Amid beis shtei halechem have a lamel shechein sibor chayva tamei de'achal pigul b'shabbata. And not only that, but it's even more. Matir tenufa ba'achetz b'zman chadash v'hanin nefishin. So I just mentioned a whole bunch more. So Rashi, hatinufa, the waving, the oimer, you wave the oimer, and also the shtei lechem records to tenufa. Aretz, oimer and the shtei lechem in boin ella mitfuas Eretz Yisrael. It has to come from the grain of Eretz Yisrael. Bizman, Rashi says, oimer v'shtei lechem kovel hem zman pesach ve'etzeres. It's a specific time. It has to be done on Pesach. It has to be done on Shavuos. Chadash, oimer v'shtei lechem ein boyin el min chadash, has to come from new grains. Okay, so nonetheless, mistaber nefesh. And therefore, nefesh is coming to include the minchas kohen. All right, it's basically the same svara multiple times. Okay. Let's keep on moving. Let's see the next Mishnah. So, going back to, let's say you have a minchas chaytein, which you're not supposed to put lavoina or shemen in it. So let's say you did. So, the din is that you violated two violations. One for putting in lavoina, one for putting in the shemen. Nasan shemen, pasla. Once you put in the shemen, which you weren't supposed to, because the minchas chaytein doesn't have oil, that passes the carbon. And then lavoina, yilkatena. You can actually pluck out the lavoina. Nasan shemen al shireha. Let's say you put shemen on the leftovers of the mincha. Eino over b'lois aseh. In that case, you haven't violated an aseh. Nasan kli al gabi kli. Let's say you put a kli. Says Rashi, "Uvatoichai in it was shemen al gabi kli shel minach so minchas chayte." So in that case, lo apostle. That's not going to apostle it. So let's see the Gemara. Tanaban. The pasuk says, "Lo yasim aleihen shemen." Don't put onto it oil. Now v'im sham. If you did put oil onto it, then apostle. Okay. Yochol yitin aleha lavaina v'lo nasan apostle. You would think if you put lavoin, you didn't put in a lavoin. You're not supposed to put in a lavoin, but if you did, it'll also passel it. Talmud learn kichatos. So kichatos is Rashi. I feel nasan aleha lavoina mikrichatos umechaperes. No, it's not true. You could put into the minchas chayte lavoina, and it'll be mechaper, which seems a little bit unlike what we said before. Okay. Yachal apeshemen. You would think also if you add an oil, it's not going to passel it. Talmud learner he. So it seems, interestingly enough, that oil will passel it, but not the lavoina. So the question is, what's the difference? So paisel ni b'shemen di esher will kaitai will makshir makshir ani b'lavoina she'esher will loita. Just practically, if you pour oil, which is a liquid, it's going to go into and absorb into the flour. So therefore, you've already violated it. But when it comes to lavaina, because it's dry, you can pluck it out, and therefore it's removed. And therefore, that's the reason why you're not going to violate. Rav Huna Rav Yochanan. Nasan lavaina shchuka. Let's say a person put in finely ground up lavaina to the point that you can't pick it up because it's all finely ground up. Mahu, are you going to have violated? Are we going to say it's puzzle and you violated or not? So this is the svar samachloik, as far as this is the svar of the kasha. So mishum de efshaloik v'halu efshalok. Maybe the only reason why you're not going to be chayav because you can just take it out, but it's all ground up, you can't take it out, so we'll passel it. Over here, the whole issue is about absorption, and even though in small pieces, they didn't actually absorb into the flour. So tashma lavoina yilkatena. It says beferish. By the lavoina, you can pluck it out, which is mashma. If you can't pluck it out, then you violated. No dilma chada ba'oid kaimer chada delo mivla. First of all, it's not absorbed. Va'oid yilkatena, and also you could pluck it out, which means if even you can't pluck it out, maybe you're still not chayav because it hasn't absorbed. Tashma, mashar nibul avayna she'er like that because you could take it out. So apparently it's a raya that if it's ground up and you can't take it out, that you would be chayav. You would be possible. No hakanami chanav va'oid ka'amar. So my havla. What's the maskan over here? What is the din when it comes to a lavayna shchuka? So the Gemara says that this. Rav Nachman Yitzchak Tanya minchas chayte uminchas kanai shenas lavaina. If you put lavaina into it, so malakit es halavaina v'kshera. It says beferish that what can you do? You take it out. So you can take it out, and then it's going to be it'll be kosher if you took it out. V'im ad shalolikat lavainasa. let's say before you actually did take it out, chishiv leha, you had a machshava. Now again, you could take it out and therefore it's kosher. Now, if you have a machshava regarding it, bin chutz lizmanu, bin chutz l'mkoimoy, pasol ve'in bo karis. There's not going to be a din karis, but you'll pasel it. Okay? Why not karis? Says Rashi, hoya v'hoya behen psul achrina. Because the only time there's an isser pigol that, let's say chutz lizmanoi, and someone eats it, and you're chayiv karis, is because there's no other psul. But over here, there's already a psul because you weren't supposed to put levain in it. And therefore, it's not going to be a din of pigol on it, and therefore, it could be enough to pasel it, but not enough to actually make you chayiv karis. However, once you took it out, and therefore it's totally fine, because when it comes to zman, time, you lose time, you get karis. So therefore, because of that, it's completely kosher. It's not posel anymore. So therefore, it becomes pigel to the extent that if you would eat it afterwards, based on that machshav, you'd be chayiv karis. So for the Gemara, v'tavi pach, why don't we say it's like a flask of oil? Says Rashi, hach mincha b'oil shel avoyna b'soicha. While the avoyna is in it, tehi ki'ilu nafal leha pach shemen. Compare it to like having a flask of oil there. Dola havi chaz, it's not fit for anything. V'teichel ola machshavas psul klal. It shouldn't do anything. Dolachi lokad law, when you remove it, tiskasher, hachinami amai psula b'machshava dechuyihi. So amai psula b'machshava dechuyihu. So Amar Abaya chatas kari rachmana. It's still called a chatas. It says Rashi, afilu ki nosin levayna. Even though levayna is in it, hilkach mahanya b'machshava l'mifsal. Therefore, the machshava is enough to pasel. Rabbi Omer hamani chanana mitzrihu. Deleis lei dechuyin. He doesn't hold of this concept of things being pushed off. The Sanya. Chanana mitzri omer. Feel dam b'kais. Even if, let's say, you have dam in a cup. This is referring to the seir hanasa b'fnim, and it's put into a kos. And then the mishtaleach, the animal on Yom Kippur, which was supposed to be sent out, the scapegoat, died. So what are we supposed to do? Even if the dam is already in the kos, maybe chaverai, you have to bring a new he-goat, shlo b'hagrola, without a lottery, umazavig loy, and then you can pour it together. Ravashi Omer kol shebiyadai lo havi dichoy. As long as it's in your hands, we're not going to push it off. Says Rashi, mazavig levi shlachenu lazazel alma leisli dechuyin. Kloimer mesa mishaleach. Since the Mishleach died, idchile dam shivakais, that this dam is pushed off. V'shvich, and therefore you have to pour it. Boy, we don't do that. We don't require it. And bring two totally different ones, because we don't require you to do that. So it must be a raya that he holds that according to him, the leisli dechuyin, it's not pushed off. Okay. Kosh biyadai lo havi dichoy. Rashi says no. Even according to the Rabbanan, anything which is in your hands to fix, for example, this situation, even it's in your hands to be able to pluck out the lavaina, so it's not considered to be dichoy, and therefore your machshava will help. Omer Rav Ada Kavase de Rav Ashi Mistabra. This opinion makes the most sense. Deman Shamadle de Isle Dechuyin. Who's the one who disagrees with Chanat Mitzri and says there is dichuyin? Rabbi Yehuda did not. But Oidam Rabbi Yehuda. In Gemara Yuma it says Nishmach Adam. Let's say the blood spilled. Yomas HaMishtalech. So the other goat has to be killed. Meis HaMishtalech. If the Mishtalech animal died, Yishmach Adam, you spill the blood. The ilu heichad should be yadai. If it's actually in your hands, the Sarah Yehuda Omer kosai mamali mekais hataruva medam hataruvas. You should take a cup with this dam mixture, v'zarkas rikachas k'nei yisoid, and sprinkle into the yisoid. Amar Rav Yitzchak b'Yosef, Amar Rav Yochanan, nasa mashahu shemen. If you take a little bit of oil, a gabi kazayas, mincha pasel. So even if it's a small amount, even a mashahu, it will pasel it. So my time, lo yosim, which mashma even sima koldahu, even a small amount. Aleh ad ikashura of flour. V'yom Rav Yitzchak b'Yosef, V'yom Rav Yochanan Nosin Kazayis Lavoina Al Gabi Mashu Mincha Apostles. That's the other way around. You have to have a shear of Lavoina even on a small amount of flour. My time lo yiting siv adi ika nesina leha, which means you actually have to have a shear nesina. Although Lavoina has to be a Kazayis olive. Have a riboy acharivin riboy achamir riboy elamayit. V'yigadi Yom Rav Yitzchak b'Yosef. Boy Rav Yochanan Nasa Mash Shemen Al Gabi Kazayas. That's as a kash. If you have a little bit of oil on a kazayas of a mincha, me beinan sima kinasina olo teku. Nasan Shemen Al Shira. Turn a button. Pasuk says only some has Shemen, not to have any oil of yitain yochol b'shnei kohanim. That you should not be with not with one kohen. Talmud Leimer aleha on it. Ubegufa shel mincha hakas medar. We're talking about the mincha itself. V'lo b'koyin. We're not talking about the person. We're talking about the mincha. Yachol yitin kli al gabi kli v'im nasan pasal talmud amaleha begufa shel avayna hakas medar. It's on the actual carbon itself. Okay, we're going to stop there. Let's maybe see another question or two. Okay, so we saw question 3. Question 4. Man shamat le, who's of the opinion, the isli dechuyin, Rabbi Huda, ve'il heicha de biyado havdichoy. Where do we find that Rabbi Huda holds of dichoy, and where do we find that when it's biyadoi, there's no din dichoy? Okay, so let's go slow and get this down. So it's on Yom Kippur. Vasinu dichoy Rabbi Huda di'amer gabi se'iri Yom Kippur. So when it comes to the 2 goats, let's say nishbach hadam, you accidentally, the one which was lahashem, you spilt the blood. You didn't do them didn't mark of it. So then the other animal has to be killed. You pushed off the other animal. It's dichoy. For that matter, mesa mishtalech yishbach hadam. If the animal that was supposed to be thrown off the cliff died, then the blood has to be spilled because it's dichoy. It pushes it off. However, we find by Psachim, the Kais, Hayamamali Medama Taruvais. We find that what he did was he would scoop up all the blood. Actually, let's look at this Rashi. Rashi says, Gemara Psachim, Kais Mamali Medama Taruvas. All the blood all over the floor, they would scoop it up, and they would throw it on the Mizbeach, because maybe one of them is Karban Pesach, and he didn't do the Zrika. So now we'll do the bezrika and it'll be okay. So it's biyadai for us to be able to do this. So we're not going to say that the Karban Pesach was pushed off. It's not good, because we could still fix it because it's biyadai. Even though you spilled the blood and you didn't do the zrika, it's in your hands to gather it up. So too, when it comes to lavaina, it's in your hands to be able to remove the lavaina. Therefore, the din would be the same. Okay. Question TA8. Minchas chayte shenasna lavaina, the chishba machshavas pigel, madina. Okay. So, depends. It doesn't depend. It just says, pasol ve'in bo kares. That's it. That's all they wanted. Question TA8. So let's find this. So if you didn't pluck out the lavaina and you had this machshava, it's pasol ve'ein bo kares. Now, why is it ein bo kares? So we said this before, is because the only time there's a chiv kares, this is TA8, is only when everything else was fine. But in this situation, there was a psul achrina. So I says v'haya b'zeh psul achrina v'chayil al zeh pigel. So you can't be chayiv kares for that. Okay. Good. Question. All right. I'm not sure if TA9. We'll take a look at that later. Heichim mahani machshavas pigel b'minchas chayte shechishim le'achar shalikid levaynasa v'hahavile dichoy koidim shenilkata. It was already a dichoy. So this is a good question. So either similar to question 4, but it's not exactly question 4. TB11. Either it's according to the opinion of Hanan Mitzri, that says he doesn't hold the dichuyin, right? Or, right, it's even like the sheet of, right, I feel like it's like Rabbi Yehuda, who holds that there are dichuyin, be'im, that's incorrect. Just as long as it's biyadai, as long as it's biyado, einoi dichui. There's no dichui, right? Like plucking out the lavoina, or scooping up the dam off the floor for carbon Pesach. Adka.